Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, rolling through spring practice, and I think the most frustrating aspect about spring practice for me regarding this Florida team is all the national media wants to talk about is DJ Lagway, and it's kind of distracting from the fact that you're hearing a ton of good things about this program as they go through spring practice, and I think some of the more notable things are one, the depth of this football team is in a very good spot. Maybe you have some question marks on the inside of the defensive line, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But you look at the wide receiver room, which we're going to talk about a lot. That was a unit that I think we had question marks about going into spring practice. I don't have any more question marks about that pass catch room after what you're hearing from spring practice. The offensive line, it's the deepest offensive line Billy Napier has had at Florida. Then you look at the secondary with names like Cormani McLean starting to play good football. Dill, one of the things that we never talk about when you're talking about a team that can compete for an SEC championship, a team that can compete for a college football playoff spot is depth. Look at Notre Dame last year. Look at Ohio State last year. Look at Texas last year. Those were teams that had a lot of success, dealt with a lot of injuries, but didn't really let those injuries derail what they were doing in the 2024 year. I look at Florida and say, yeah, there's the star talent that you need. It starts with DJ Lagway at quarterback, but it's also a really deep team. And that's going to help you in the month of November. And if you want to win football games in December, January, damn well better be deep, especially in the SEC. That's what stands out to me the most throughout spring practice. Now, I want to talk about some surprise names that have emerged, kind of go down this depth chart and talk about some names that kind of are popping a little bit during spring practice before we get into it. As always, one, to the Florida fans, appreciate you guys. And look, I know the Florida fan base, y'all got some business to take care of later on tonight. The amount of support that y'all have shown the fellas as we've talked the recruiting trail, as we've talked spring practice, it's been amazing. Appreciate you guys. Best of luck tonight. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to cook for just a second here, and then I'm going to let you kind of open up about the offensive line, but I want to cook about KD Daniels real quick. Dill, 12 months ago, and I was wrong about this. 12 months ago, if you would have asked me, all right, what freshman running back do you think can play a bigger role their freshman year, I probably would have said KD Daniels over Jaden Baugh. And I liked them both coming out of high school, but I love KD Daniels. Now, Jaden Baugh was that guy as a freshman. I think Jaden Baugh is going to be the running back one for this offense in 2025. But, Dill, KD Daniels offers a different flavor. It's kind of thunder and lightning. Now, Jaden Baugh, what makes him unique, and that's a big back that moves really, really well for that size. But KD Daniels a little bit smaller, legitimate burst. And I love that you have a running back in KD Daniels that's emerging that can give you a little bit different skill set than a guy like Jaden Baugh. And deal with this offensive line and how big and physical we think this unit is. The national media is going to talk about DJ Lagway. The national media is going to talk about this passing attack, which we expect to be good in 2025. Do not sleep on the ability for this Florida Gators program to run the football at a high level in 2025 as well.
And you said it, like the physicality of that offensive line and the way they were playing towards the end of the year, I think is what allowed Florida to start playing better. And obviously DJ Lagway was a huge part of that, but it really did start with that offensive line just taking some jumps in playing physically, especially in the run game. Now, again, they're pass pro. That's probably what you're going to be mostly looking for this year. Can that catch up to that run blocking? Like, they were really good. They were solid pass pro. I'm not trying to say they were poor.
Yep.
But their run blocking, I thought, was excellent. I'm still kind of looking, can they be an elite pass pro unit this year? But that's kind of Jaden Baugh's game, what they were doing, like that ability to run guys off the ball and move guys around. That's Jaden Baugh's game. I wonder if they can work in some zone read type stuff with Lagway this year, assuming he's healthy. And that's where I feel like KD Daniels could really be an impact.
Getting back to that run game a little bit, and I will probably just transition to the offensive line. You made a good point. I don't know how much Florida's going to run DJ Lagway because the emphasis seems to be on keeping this kid healthy. We didn't really get to see it because he was dealing with the hamstring injury pretty much all of 2024. But getting DJ Lagway, I'm not saying he's going to get 20-plus carries a game because you don't want your star quarterback, arguably the best quarterback in the country, taking all those hits. He's going to be a factor in the run game. And like you said, with some of those his own reads with KD Daniels
Well,
getting
you just want a more explosive running back. And Jaden Bott, he's a good physical runner. He does a good job with running through contact and playing behind his pads. But again, if KD Daniels can give him some of that explosiveness that, like, you think of some of those running backs who have worked in that scheme really well, like a Steven going back, like a Steve Slayton with Pat White. It's like when you have a little bit more burst and you're running with a quarterback who can open some things up. Yeah, you want an explosive running back to be able to take advantage of it. So I don't know that it will be the staple of this offense, but it'll be a nice change of pace that I think Florida can throw.
And one of the things I'll say low key about this, like, look, I the Florida fans who've been rocking with the boys for a while know I've been critical at times of Billy Napier. The evals that they've had out of high school, kind of nasty, dude. I mean, Jaden Ball, KD Daniels were not like super coveted names coming out of high school. Both of them are emerging as, legitimate difference makers for this Florida offense. I believe we lost Dill. Ideally, he comes back at some point. I want to switch to the offensive line, though. We got him back. We're rolling right through. We're on to the offensive line, though. Dill, offensive line. We kind of touched on this at the top here. This offensive line is deep, specifically at offensive tackle. We've come a long way from the 2023 season where we were forced to play Damian George because we didn't have another tackle that could play. Now you're sitting there and saying, all right, we know Austin Barber's a lock at left tackle. Dude's going into his 4th year starting in the SEC. Bryce Lovett has emerged, and it kind of sounds like he's got a little bit of a stranglehold on the right tackle position. Billy Napier has been very vocal of both Fletcher Westphal and Caden Jones. Dill, we see a lot of teams in spring practice. They don't even have 2 tackles they trust. Florida's pushing 4 tackles that it sounds like they trust at kind of to play for them in the 2025 year. I know you're a big fan of Caden Jones, so I'm going to let you kind of cook on him. We haven't seen a ton from him, but go back to the spring game last year. That's when you kind of came on your radar. The emergence of Caden Jones, what does that mean for Florida on the offensive line?
I mean, it's like, but he's like the guy that screams tackle. Like Bryce Lovett, I'm sure he can play tackle, but I'm sure at the next level, he's probably more of a guard. So again, if you can get really good right tackle play for him, I think you have enough depth in that interior where you feel really good. If this is your starting 5 and you're out there with Harris, Slaughter, and George at the guard and center spots, you feel great about that. But I look like Caden Jones is kind of the guy, and Fletcher Westphal, you're starting to hear some things that talk about another guy who's a tackle. He's born to play it.
Yeah.
But Caden Jones, you go back to last year, you saw like a little bit leaner, very athletic. I thought he was doing a good job moving guys around and playing physical as well. But again, you're looking for, and you feel like maybe you haven't always had it at Florida, guys who are like born to play tackle. Caden Jones, that's kind of, he was born to play.
And Dill, here's something Florida's never had the ability to do because the depth has been a problem. All right, now we got 7, 8, 9 guys that we think can play for Florida. Now we can start playing around with what's our best 5. And maybe the best 5 is Bryce Lovett passing Damian George up, kicking in the guard, and then Fletcher Westphal or Caden Jones playing right tackle. Because I think you're right. Bryce Lovett probably going to be a better guard than he is tackle. It's going to be an exciting unit for Florida. And again, all the national media attention goes to DJ Lagway. He's going to have a really good offensive line. We know in the run game. We know this unit can road grade a little bit. But if they take that step in pass protection and really can keep DJ Lagway clean, you're excited about what this offense can be because the wide receiver room, which again, 2 months ago was like, I mean, Eugene Wilson and J. Michael Sturdivant were like the only 2 wide receivers with any production. Okay, I know you love Eugene. You want 30 seconds to cook on Eugene Wilson? I mean,
people have just totally forgot about what he is.
I agree.
After obviously dealing with the injury, just wasn't on the field. But like you go back to that freshman year and what he was starting to do, especially towards the end of it, that to me is a legitimate wide receiver 1 in the SEC. I didn't think, not elite play around him necessarily. Offensive line, not great. Quarterback play was like solid, but not incredible. And he was really balling as kind of the only weapon it felt like before that time. So I think, again, you talk about a guy who can kind of do everything, dangerous after the catch, really, really elite route runner and separator, I feel like.
Yep.
I think the one
Dill, that's the one part. Sorry to interrupt because I know that was your I just interrupted you on your spotlight with Eugene Wilson. You're going to be pissed at me. But Dill, one of the things, his route running, we didn't really get a huge flavor of that his freshman because he's kind of used as a little bit of a gadget guy where we're just going to get the ball in your hands. And
I thought early, yes, but then you started to see him develop as a wide receiver.
I agree. And then it got cut short in year 2. Like, I'm fired up for what year 3 can be. And another thing is you're getting more guys that can be dangerous with the ball in their hands. Like, for the last 2 years, it was as good as Jameer Deacon and Elijah Badger were, like, very solid wide receivers. They were much more downfield guys. They weren't super dynamic with the football in their hands. We know Eugene Wilson can be that guy. We know freshman Vernell Brown can be that guy. The emergence of Adam Mazel as a guy, Billy Napier specifically saying what he can do after the catch is special. So here's another guy that we know can operate with the football in their hands, which is a very important part of this Florida offense. It is predicated on getting the football to playmakers in space. And then you have the emergence of not only Jay Michael, who sounds like he's what we thought he was coming in through the portal. I don't think it's crazy to say Dallas Wilson is the wide receiver 1. And Dale, he fits what DJ Lagway wants to do to a T. We know DJ Lagway throws the best deep ball in college football. Well, you got a big, fast wide receiver that is looking the part early as a freshman. We saw so many freshman wide receivers take college football by storm last year. Jeremiah Smith obviously headlines it. Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman, Brian Wesco, and TJ Moore. You're talking about freshmen that have a year 1 impact and and I'm talking about like wide receiver 1 impact. Everything you're hearing is like Dallas Wilson can do that for Florida, which is
he does probably fit the need they have, which is a little bit more of a vertical threat.
Size.
I was kind of saying Eugene Wilson. That's probably the one thing we haven't seen a ton of from him.
Agreed.
His ability to work vertically down the field. J. Michael Sturdivant's kind of a hybrid. I feel like just a really good all around possession wide receiver. I don't know that he can definitely make plays down the field, but he's not necessarily elite at it. I feel like Dallas Wilson becoming that guy who can just like really strike fear working down the field, especially with the way DJ Lagway can push it. Like, that'd be a really, really dangerous core.
And then you're hearing great things about Nashawn Montgomery. And the Florida fans were pissed at me because I was sleeping on him, and rightfully so. So I add him to the depth chart. You're hearing good things about him too. It kind of goes back to the depth. Like, this is the deepest team we've seen Billy Napier have. It's not only the most talented team, and that's where everybody wants to go is star talent. This team is freaking deep on the offensive side of the football. And Dill, quite frankly, really deep on defense too. Now, the one question that you probably still have, especially with, Caleb Banks working through the injury during spring, Jamari Lyons working to come back. I know Dontre Robinson at times been in and out of spring practice. You might be a little concerned about the depth on the inside of the defensive line. But Dill, here's the thing about that is you can go address that in the portal. And it's going to be hard, but when you're Florida and you don't have a ton of needs, you only really have one need that I see on this roster, and I'm not even sure if it's a need yet, but it might be. You can kind of focus your attention to fill that one hole, as opposed to there's a lot of teams that have 3, 4, 5 different positions they got to address. It's hard to address all of them. Billy Napier and Florida only have one. Here's what I want to talk about on defense. One, I love what you're hearing from the edge room. Freshman Jaden Woods, loved him out of high school. Believe he's from Kansas. Dude. Linebacker room. You have 4 really good linebackers. Ron Roberts has a little bit of a puzzle on his hand. And I'll ask you this question. I think you might push back here. Do you think we see Florida play 3 linebacker sets a little bit more? And here's why. One, because you have a lot of linebackers that you probably want to get on the football field. But Dill, number 2, the linebackers that you have, specifically guys like Aaron Childs, guys like Pop Howard.
I think Miles Graham is the guy I'm looking. If you're thinking you're going to say one of them can like split that hybrid nickel linebacker kind of role, it's got to be Miles Graham to me. I think his athleticism, his ability to cover ground, and it's tough to pull the nickel off this position of defense for Florida because I love Aaron Gates, and I'm a Sharif Denson guy too. But Aaron Gates is kind of the guy I look at. I think he could be an absolute stud in that nickel spot. Tough to pull that spot off. But to me, if you think Miles Graham can really play in space at a high level, you probably could do it. Because, again, you do have 4 guys who just feel like they're going to be incredible players.
And the thing is, you have nickels that can fit the run too, though. So it's not like there's a lot of teams that don't have nickels that can fit the run all that well. So then it might be a little bit more appealing. Again, the questions we have for Florida is not like, are we good enough here? It's like, how can we maximize it?
That might be a game-to-game thing. It's like, okay, you play a team like Georgia that's probably not going to spread you out as much. Maybe you do see more linebackers, a guy who can deal with the tight ends because that's kind of where Georgia's going to play. And then if it's a team like LSU who you know is going to be spread out, you probably have your true nickels. So you can probably roll it a little bit. But it's tough to take Sharif Denson, Aaron Gates off the field. I'll say that.
Here's another question. you got to try to figure out who your best five is in the secondary, especially with the emergence of Kamani McLean. Now, if you asked me 2 months ago, look, Devin Moore, Deshaun Johnson are your locks to start at boundary cornerback. That still might be the case. And now, but the question was, are we deep enough at cornerback? Right? Well, with Kamani McLean stepping up and what I think Ben Hanks can do as a freshman, you feel good about your depth. And Devin Moore's a guy that's played some nickel in his career. And so say you want to get all three of them on the football field, again, it's like hard to make the argument to take a guy like Aaron Gates to Sharif Denson off the field, but maybe you're messing around with Devin Moore playing a little nickel, or maybe pushing back to safety. We saw Florida do this. I mean, Triquez Bridges last year was a guy that came in to play safety, had to play cornerback in a pinch, played really well. Florida in the back end can cross train really well, and you know that's important to Ron Roberts. I guess to close it out, the questions that we're having, they're fun, they're good problems to have. You know, in the past couple of years, there have been things you've liked about Florida, but there's also been like a lot of question marks that are like, are we good enough at these spots? Now it's like, all right, how do we maximize this team? How do we take this team from what I think can be a really good football team to a great football team in 2025? That's the spring practice questions we're asking. Look, as frustrating as the first couple of years have been under Billy Napier, he has assembled a football team, a roster.
I was going to say, you talk about like slow development and a bit of a build. Like, again, he's got to make it happen this year. And
Agreed.
You certainly hope the on-field like chaos that sometimes erupts for this Florida team is kind of like controlled a little bit more. But this is a football team that should be extremely dangerous. As much as like you just like to focus on the negative with Billy Napier, I feel like a lot of people have. You got to give him credit. He's kept a lot of guys in this program, developed them well, and now this got to be the payoff season.
Still, he's built it. He's done everything right off the field, in my opinion. Like the evals out of high school have been really good. The player retention has been really good. As much as people wanted to make noise about not getting aggressive in the portal, you retained a lot of good football players going into 2025. In an era of college football where we've seen so many new coaches come in and use the portal a lot and try to get like quick fixes and then like, you know, not have it sustainable. It does feel like Billy Napier. It's been slower, and I know he hasn't done everything right, but I feel like he's done it the right way.
He's put a team together that can legitimately be really good.
2025 is the payoff season. And then on the flip side is like, look, if you can't win with this roster, you probably ain't winning at Florida. And then we're having a conversation about who's the next head coach of the Florida Gators. But he, at the very least, has put together a roster that can be much better than people appreciate. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Good luck tonight to the Florida Gators basketball team. Good luck to y'all listening to the boys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.